The flower moon killer's meaning lies in the metaphor of taller plants choking the newly blossoming spring flowers, symbolizing the white neighbor's attempt to strangle and destroy the Osage's financial prosperity. Welcome back to Beautiful Disasters. I'm so glad to welcome you back to the channel as we explore stories that started with great moments but quickly spiraled down. Before we get into today's topic, I would like to ask that you subscribe to the channel so that you can keep up with all my updates. Now let's get into today's story that inspired the movie. Killers of the Flower Moon, the Osage murders. I want to deep dive into this case and give you the real facts of what happened to the Osage Indians. This is a forgotten history, just like the Tulsa massacre. It needs to be told the right way and not be forgotten. I am going based on the book by David Grann's Killer of the Flower Moon, not the movie. I have not seen the film because I wanted to read the book first before watching the movie. This case will be broken into parts so that I can cover most of what happened, because this case goes way beyond William K. Hale. In the small town of Gray Horse, Oklahoma on May 24, 1921, Molly Burkhart, an Osage Indian, felt a growing sense of unease. Her sister, Anna Brown, had been missing for 3 days, and Molly couldn't shake off the worry that something terrible had happened. Anna, just a year older than Molly, had a tendency to disappear on wild nights of drinking and dancing, but this time it felt different. Molly's concern deepened, especially considering the recent loss of their younger sister, Minnie, to a mysterious illness. Molly and her sisters, along with their parents, are officially recognized as members of the Osage tribe, and their names are listed on the Osage roll. This special status comes with a unique advantage. Their family is entitled to a significant inheritance. It all started when the Osage tribe was forced to leave their ancestral lands in Kansas and settle in a seemingly worthless piece of land in northeastern Oklahoma during the 1870s. Little did they know that beneath this rocky and barren terrain lay some of the largest oil deposits in the entire United States. In the early 20th century, the tribe's fortune took a remarkable turn. Each member of the tribe began receiving a quarterly check, and as time passed, these dividends grew exponentially. Eventually, the Osage tribe collectively amassed millions of dollars. In fact, in just one year, 1923, the tribe received over $30 million, which would be equivalent to more than $900 million in today's currency. The racist U.S. government can't be all too happy about the Osage's discovery, and as suspicious happenings start taking place in Osage County, it seems as if a grab at the Osage fortune is at the root of the crimes. The Osage's wealth was a source of envy for the world, and this was compounded by the fact that their opulence was on full display. The media's focus on the tribe's wild customs was a reflection of their racist bias against the Osage people. It appears that what truly outraged the public was not the fact that the Osage had money, but rather that their wealth was allowing them to challenge the social order that had kept white Americans at the top of the food chain. Molly, on the other hand, may not spend as extravagantly as her neighbors, but she still enjoys a life of luxury. She resides in a sprawling mansion, owns multiple cars, and employs a team of servants. While many of the tribe's servants are Black or Mexican, even white individuals were reported to perform menial tasks around the house that no Osage would stoop to do. Despite fully integrating into white society and amassing a significant amount of wealth, Molly remains deeply connected to her cultural heritage and numerous tribal customs. Molly happened to be one of the last individuals to have seen Anna before her mysterious disappearance. On that fateful day, May 21st, 1921, Molly rose early, a habit instilled in her since childhood when her father would awaken each morning to offer prayers to the sun. Unlike many of her acquaintances, Molly still adorned herself in traditional Osage attire, draping an Indian blanket around her shoulders and allowing her long ebony hair to cascade freely down her back. Molly's husband, Ernest Burkhart, rose alongside her. And it's the 28-year-old Caucasian man hailed from Texas, where his father toiled as a destitute cotton farmer. At the age of 19, Ernest relocated to Oklahoma to reside with his overbearing uncle, William K. Hale, a prominent cattleman. Ernest served as Hale's errand boy and worked as a livery driver, a profession that brought him into contact with Molly while chauffeuring her around town. Sally and Ernest hastily tied the knot, despite Ernest's friends looking down upon him for marrying an Indian woman and becoming a squaw man. Molly, too, harbored reservations about marrying Ernest. She battled diabetes. English was her second language, and furthermore, all three of her sisters had wedded Caucasian men. Molly believed she should honor the tradition of an arranged Osage marriage. Nonetheless, in 1917, she wedded Ernest, and by 1921, they were blessed with two children, Elizabeth and James, affectionately known as Cowboy. On the 21st of May, Molly hosted a small luncheon at her house. While Molly tended to her sick mother, Lizzie, the house was bustling with preparations. Molly asked Ernest to call Anna and request her assistance with the preparations. Anna arrived dressed to the nines in flashy red shoes, an alligator purse, and a traditional Indian blanket. Anna's appearance represented her personality as she had embraced white fashions and the gaudy, flashy sensibility of the roaring 20s while still being tied to her tribe in small ways. However, Molly noticed that Anna was already drunk. As the guests arrived, including Ernest's brothers Brian and Horace, Anna became increasingly drunk, sipping from a hip flask of bootleg whiskey. Anna had recently divorced her husband, Oda Brown, and had been spending time in many of the reservation's tumultuous boom towns, drinking and gambling. During the party, Anna flirted with Ernest's younger brother, Brian, and got into a fight with Molly and her mother. As the party ended, Ernest took some guests to the next town over, Fairfax, to see a musical, and Brian offered to drop Anna off at home. Molly helped sober Anna up and sent her on her way. That was the last time Molly saw Anna before her mysterious disappearance. As the days pass and Anna remains missing, Molly's anxiety only grows. Despite Brian's insistence that he dropped Anna off at home that night, Molly sends Ernest to check on her. However, Anna's house is empty and her servant hasn't seen her in days. The news of Anna's disappearance spreads quickly throughout the reservation, adding to the unease already present due to the recent disappearance of Charles Whitehorn. Despite her worries, Molly tries to remain calm and tells herself that Anna is just off on one of her binges. A week after Anna's disappearance, an oil worker is on a hill a mile north of downtown Pawhuska when he notices a rotting corpse poking out from the brush near the base of an oil rig. The victim has been shot execution style twice between the eyes. The oil worker calls others over to take a look, but the body is so badly decomposed that it is impossible to identify. One pocket of the corpse's trousers contains a letter addressed to Charles Whitehorn. Several miles away near Fairfax, a man and his teenage son are squirrel hunting. When the boy chases a squirrel down into a ravine, he spots a dead body at the edge of the creek. Again, the body is badly decomposed, but appears to be that of an American Indian woman. Grann and his son rush back into town and alert the proprietor of the Big Hill Trading Company, Scott Mathis, of what they found. Mathis alerts his undertaker, and several men return to the creek, where they drag the body from the ravine and begin examining it. The body is in such bad shape, though, that none of them can make an identification. Mathis contacts Molly, and her sister Rita's husband Bill Smith, Ernest, and Brian make their way out to the creek. As Molly and Rita approach the stinking, blackened, bloated body, they immediately recognize Anna's Indian blanket and flashy clothing. When Rita's husband, Bill, pries the corpse's mouth open with a stick, Anna's sisters recognize her gold fillings and begin to weep. A coroner's inquest is hastily convened at the ravine. Although by the 1920s, citizens no longer assumed the burdens of investigating crimes and maintaining order as they once did throughout the United States before the advent of police departments. In areas such as Pawhuska, areas on the edge of civilization, vestiges of these old systems remain. Just a justice of the peace and a group of jurors selected from the white men who have gathered at the ravine try to determine whether Anna has died by an act of God or man. Two doctors who often care for Molly's family, a pair of brothers named James and David Schoen, begin to perform an autopsy using primitive instruments and a makeshift table. They determine that Anna has been deceased for between 5 and 7 days and soon notice a perfectly round hole in the back of her skull, about the size of a .32 caliber bullet. The men realized that Anna's death was an act of cold-blooded murder sustained in the 1920s, and especially in places like Pawhuska lawmen were then still largely amateurs. David Grann writes, at the time of Anna's murder, the Osage County Sheriff was a 58-year-old, 300-pound frontiersman named Freeze, who, according to rumor, was cozy with criminal elements. Freeze allegedly granted not just leniency, but free rein to gamblers and bootleggers in the area. Men like Kelsey Morrison and Henry Grammer, notorious moonshine runners. Grann reveals that despite Anna's brutal murder, seeking justice for her after her death would be an arduous task due to the prevalent corruption and racism in the area. When Freeze learns about Anna's killing, he is already occupied with the Whitehorn murder and dispatches a deputy to the ravine to gather evidence. However, the doctors, the Schoens, are unable to locate a bullet in Anna's brain, even though there is no exit wound. The deputy only manages to collect a bottle of moonshine assumed to belong to Anna. No one bothers to collect fingerprints, examine tire marks on the nearby road, test Anna's body for gunpowder residue, or even document the crime scene with photographs. Upon hearing the news of her eldest daughter's death, Lizzie is consumed by profound grief, which further deteriorates her already fragile health. Molly takes charge of organizing Anna's funeral, which turns out to be an extravagantly expensive affair. Undertakers at the time exploited the Osages by charging exorbitant rates, forcing them to pay amounts equivalent to nearly $80,000 in today's currency. Anna's funeral incorporates both Osage and Catholic customs, but due to the compromised state of her body, certain rituals like face painting and ornamentation cannot be performed. As Anna's coffin is lowered into the ground, her family recites Osage prayer songs dedicated to Wekanta, the enigmatic life force that shaped the Osage way of life. The deaths of Anna and Charles are not mere coincidences. The speed at which they occurred and the striking similarities between them raise suspicions among the people. As the news spreads, curiosity grows about what is really happening on the Osage reservation. Part 1 of the Osage murders has come to a close. Stay tuned for part 2, which will be uploaded shortly. Don't forget to subscribe to the